author of the Gospel of Luke and the Acts of the Apostles, was a physician by trade. This is his profession. In addition to being a really fantastic writer and sort of historian with these talents that Luke had, at the end of the day, his professional sort of career, if you want to call it that, was to be a doctor, to be a physician. And I think this shows up in a very intriguing way as I'm doing yet another read-through the Gospel of Luke lately. What I've found is that there seems to be a recurring theme an awful lot that I see jumping off the pages of Luke's Gospel that I don't think I've ever really noticed before in terms of how frequently it shows up. And I think that theme is something like this. Use as directed, okay? Or take as indicated. And with this idea of Luke as a physician, I think there's a particular kind of connection here that maybe goes unnoticed that I might suggest to you today. What do I mean by this? There's a lot of stories in Luke's Gospel where we see people like the man who has a great yield of his harvest, and he gets all excited and he builds up great barns to prepare for all this prosperity in the future. And we learn from the story, this parable that Jesus tells in Luke's Gospel, that the Lord basically says, God says to this man, essentially, you fool, this very night your life is required of you. And in other words, have you stored up treasure in heaven? We also see a lot of other stories, a lot of other parables that really seem to amount to the importance of prioritizing the divine life, prioritizing our relationship with God. We think of some of the other stories Luke has Jesus telling in these parables about various versions of this, where you have servants who are looking after a property or looking after some sort of stewardly role they have while their master is gone, and the master comes home and they're not ready. They basically slack off. They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, and Jesus communicates this very urgent sort of sense of foolish people who did not prepare. You do not know the hour when your master will return. You do not know the hour when the Son of Man will demand your life of you. Now, far from being scared of this, I think what's interesting to notice here is that Luke, as the physician, I think, seems to be emphasizing this idea of the importance of taking our medicine, so to speak, as indicated. Luke, no doubt, as any physician knows, you run into patients sometimes who don't do what they're supposed to do. They have a disease, they have a malady, they have some sort of serious issue, maybe even life-threatening, and you can tell them what to do. I'm not a doctor, but you can tell them what to do, you can prescribe what medicine, and as a patient myself in the past, sometimes I haven't always done it right. Sometimes I think, well, that's not really that important. What does that doctor know? Those kinds of things. And that's a very common problem that we, sort of run into in our own lives. So I'm starting to suspect here that Luke, as a physician, recognizes that even in his professional career, and is making a spiritual application here. This is very important, I think, for us in the life of faith, especially in times when there's crisis in the church, when there's challenges that we see, when we're tempted to lose faith, when we get upset at the behavior of certain people in the church. Now, we're all sinners, but, truth be told, we see scandalous things happen, right? Those of us who are sinners who are trying, though, to live the life, and you see what looks like hypocrisy, or you see someone who is even in leadership, perhaps, who we can't understand. How could they have been where they were at? How could they have shepherded others and apparently, not been affected by the gospel? Here's the thing that we have to remember. We cannot judge the effectiveness of a medicine, the effectiveness of a cure, based on the experience of those who do not take it as indicated, those who do not take it properly. And no matter what clothes you wear, and as sadly as we've seen, no matter what graces you have, basically, even through ordination sometimes, or through these positions that God, in His providence might be calling people to, at the end of the day, we're all still sinners. We are all still in desperate need of true application of the grace of Christ, the healing power of Jesus Christ. We can fake it. We can try to get around it. We can try to take the medicine, so to speak, our spiritual cure, not as indicated. To look to everyone else like I'm taking it, like I'm pretending to swig it, right? But deep down I'm pouring it out. Okay. I think these are some important things for us to think about, and I think Luke can really help us to kind of consider the importance of the prioritizing of following what the Lord says, listening to the voice of Christ, and actually doing what He says, doing what He requires us to do, coming to Him, admitting when we've made mistakes, admitting when we've failed Him, and being sincerely desirous of receiving whatever graces He wants to give us so that we can actually receive the healing that He wants us all to receive. So, just some food for thought for today. read the Gospel of Luke over and over and over again. Keep reading it. It's a tremendous gospel. They all are, but today I'm just really emphasizing Luke. So get out there, grab a copy of the Gospel of Luke, and dig through it. So this is Mike, and until next time, don't forget to wonder. Take care.